Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hi. You can hear some noise from the background. Someone's. Hello. Is it mine, huh? Hmm? I don't hear you. Can you say whatever? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me, what is going on? So you guys have all submitted your the assignment.
Yes, sir.
No, sir. Sir, can you give 2 days extra? I'm stuck at one part of one question.
Okay. I mean, since I am not going to discuss these things today as such, so you can take time for some more time. Okay, so that is
And
fine.
sir, I have a request. Can you please slow down a bit because a lot of things are getting piled up and so many topics which are not included in the assignments. Uh, I cannot study them properly. So it will be helpful if you slow down a bit.
I mean, what do you mean by slowing down? In the last 2 weeks, I have literally done only one thing.
Yes, sir. I agree. Actually,
I cannot slow down further. I mean, then it will mean that I have to kind of stop it.
yes, I mean, if you can, maintain this pace, or I mean, not this slow, but okay, this is fine.
Yeah,
Not,
I mean, in the last 2 weeks, I have hardly done anything. Right. So if you are still struggling, that is very much possible that you are still having tough time because see, this is not the easiest of the courses. Okay, that is fine, and I understand that you might be finding it tough to follow this whole thing because you guys are not uh, completely used to thinking algorithmically. So that is a very natural thing that happens. But see, I mean, you have to follow up with the classes, okay? Whatever is going on in the classwork. The assignments, I would say that the kind of assignments that are being given, on an average, you should not take you more than say a couple of hours to do the assignments. Okay, so if the assignments are taking you more than 2 hours to solve the assignments comes kind of once every 2 weeks. Then
sir, actually,
yeah,
solving a question or that is not the difficult part. The writing it in the algorithmic way, that is where the time goes.
even that one you should not be taking more than 2 hours. Okay, so if you are struggling with that, this is what I'm saying that you please, I mean, talk to the yeah, basically contact us and talk to take help from the uh, take help from the TAs. And so you see, I don't think any one of you have actually spoken to the TAs at all. Okay, so you have to take help from the TAs or write to us saying that, okay, see, this is the particular thing that is not working, or this is something that is working, or something like that. And accordingly, we can help you out. But if you are taking more than 2 hours for this stuff, for solving the assignments completely, okay, then I think you guys are, I mean, then there is some issue possibly. Then we can help you out. Okay, but I don't think at this point trying to slow down further is a possibility also. I don't think that is that because I have really been very slow about it. and it is just not possible to slow down further. Okay, so this is just not possible. In fact, if at all, it will go a bit faster now. I don't want to cover the material. I mean, it's not like I am in a rush to cover the material that has to be done or something. I'm happy to not cover all the materials, but at the end of the day, I mean, uh, there is at least something that has to be done, and I don't think whatever is being done now, I am going fast. See, there is this DFS and BFS stuff. That is something that we have been doing for last some time, right? Last 2 weeks. I mean, since the 2 weeks before the break, we have been working on that. And then there is this Kruskal's and Prince algorithm that you guys told that has been done. So they are kind of repeat course stuff. Okay. And I'm just taking 2 lectures a week. So I don't think that I'm going fast here. Please try to, please take help from your TAs or friends or anything. If again, I'm saying these assignments are being given with 5 to 6 problems. Ideally, you should not be taking more than 2 hours to get it done completely. If it is taking more than say 6 hours, more than 3 hours or 2-3 hours to work out everything, then I think you guys have to work on it. I mean, take help from us, okay, so that we can help you about how to write. Maybe you guys are writing more than what is necessary. Maybe you guys are okay. So we can. I mean, but unless you guys talk to us, we cannot do anything. So, okay. By the way, I should also say that I don't know whether you guys have heard it or not, or whether you have been told that there will be no physical NSEM exam. Okay, which means that it will be an online exam, like we have been, kind of something, that's kind of something that this thing has been going on. So it will be like, it's a very interesting thing. So I don't know what is exactly going on, how will we conduct this whole stuff. But the basic idea seems that we have to take the exams in a timed manner, a timed exam through a timed exam through Zoom, such that it is being so that at the same time, so that we can keep a tab on you guys. So in other words, you guys are expected to keep your videos on, so that we can see what is going on, and it will be just a 2.5 hour exam. So this is what has been suggested to us by the Dean's office. I'm not saying that this is something that I'm happy about it. So one thing that I want you guys is that to kind of tell me how many of you have access to a webcam, or how many of you don't have an access to a webcam. So can you, or is your internet speed slow enough that you cannot have a webcam on during some exam or something?
Sir, I can tell you from on my behalf that my internet speed is not very stable. The entire place that we have, that I am from. So the thing is, we do not even have broadband lines, abhi, and because of the current situation, it is matlab, you cannot lay it also. Like even like the providers like Jio, Fiber, and Airtel, etc., is not there. So I worked on it for quite some time to get it done.
Yeah.
So I have to rely on, and the dongle speeds are not good. So so I have to connect like via my mobile. I have to take a data plan and then connect via the mobile. And so I'm not saying I'm able to see like attend the classes, but it's like on an on and off thing. Like I miss at times. I have a like there can be a time when the connection is gone, then it comes back, but it's not like entirely stable. I don't know if with the video on how it will be, because like during the classes we turn it off and then continue with our classes. So but the thing is I have tested it a few times, on calls with some friends or etc. And when I'm with the video on, the connection becomes even less stable.
Hmm.
So um, I don't know. So that is okay. I don't know. Maybe many the other guys are also facing that. Will face that same problem. So that is the current scenario now. What is the work? How do we work this out? I have no idea. Like what can be a solution here? So I have used I've tried using a dongle also, and even like I
And don't,
sometimes connect.
yeah, I understand. You don't have to be apologetic. I mean, this is not your problem as such.
Yeah, no, I mean I have tried a lot of things, but even, and so it's just key. I am not the resources that I have currently that I
Right.
can get the
Right.
best. It is like it's performing at the most optimum levels. So, but then there is issues with it. So we have to live with it. So
Yeah.
there is.
So okay. So I will just start uh, mm, I will start a poll. Okay. So that I can send this information to the dean's office. But has any other teacher in your class spoken to you about this? Same thing.
Arnav sir told us yesterday.
Okay. And what did he suggest?
He said if we have, I mean, he's not also very much happy with this system, and he said if any one of us has some internet issues or any other issues, we should mail Dean sir as soon as possible.
Yeah. So okay. So let me launch the poll. I mean, so you will see what this is about the internet webcams, so that I can actually inform the dean's office back and accordingly. Okay. I understand that there are a couple of people I think who are right now not even here because of some internet issue. People from Rajasthan. There's some couple of districts in Rajasthan which is struggling. See this. Just want to let me take a photo of this poll so that I can accordingly pass on. Okay, thanks. Okay, okay, so I will let you know about what happens in the internet situation. Sorry, about the NSM situation. I have no idea what is going on. As I told you, I mean, there are some serious logistical nightmares that are there, and I don't think the dean's office has any solution as such. If you guys, by any chance, get to know of some solution that is feasible or something like that, please let us know. I will try to follow up with the dean's office. But in any case, it seems that, so the reason I pulled this one out is that it seems that we will be having a online exam, so that is most likely. Okay, whether on or without a webcam or something like that, that I don't know. There will be possibly be a timed exam to some level. Again, whether it will be just a 2.5 hour exam or a 6 hour exam is something I don't know. Okay, and uh, uh, um, and since it is an online exam, so you have to kind of uh, write it up and send it and all those kind of stuff. Okay, so please get used to the timed way of solving some stuff. Okay, I don't think that for the assignment that has been given so far, you should be needing more than 2 hours or 3 hours at the most for solving them. And particularly if you are following the class, uh, this should be pretty simple. Okay, the assignments are not hard. And the other thing is that for doing the assignment, if you are taking way too much time and you are unable to keep pace with the class, then that I think is not an acceptable thing, because then that will always happen. So in that case, I have to kind of give an assignment and wait for 1 week before you submit the assignment and then go to the next subject. That is just not possible. Also, I understand that you guys are, you guys are spending a lot of time, but still, I should say that particularly this semester, as you all know, is a very special semester, right? So you have to put in more than the normal hours. I can only give you so much knowledge or information in that 1 hour lecture or something like that. If you think that me uploading videos beforehand was better, I will be happy to do it. I will go back to that particular thing. In that case, I will upload the videos and ask you to follow the videos before you come for the class. If you think that attending videos is better than reading the books and something. But again, telling all of that stuff, what I don't think, you expect me to solve, you should expect me to cover at least one chapter every, or one topic rather, every class. Okay, I will try to go slow, as much slow as possible, but it cannot be slower than what is going on now. Just not possible. If you are struggling, please contact us. Please, please. This is no excuse. I have got TAs, 3 TAs for you. The TAs are there particularly to help you guys out. If you have any issues about, say, I am struggling with writing something, say maybe we are late in giving back your corrected assignments. Fine, but if you still want that, if you still are very worried about that, see, I am not sure whether I'm writing it enough or not, contact the TAs and say that, see, this is the amount of I have written. Do you think this is fine? Or this is the problem, this is the issue that I have. Now, can you help me out with that? If you don't put in the effort and contact us, it is just not possible in this situation. I can't even see your faces. Right, so I can't even tell you. Usually in a class, by looking at the faces, I can make out whether people are understanding it or not. Here, there is nothing of that form. So, if you have issues, please reach out to us. There is no excuse about that. Okay, and I think so. I understand that initially you guys were struggling, and I gave you a lot of break. I kind of slowed down, and I'm really last 4 weeks I've hardly covered much stuff. But no more. It cannot go on this pace. The goal is to learn something, not to just sit down and you cannot expect me to just say that, oh, see, there will be I just need a grade in the algorithm course, that's all. I hope that all of you are interested in learning something, and if that is not the case, then that's not a very good stuff. Okay, so other than this thing, any other technical issues, any technical problems that you have, some doubts, questions from whatever has been done so far? So since someone asked me about the extension of the extension of this stuff. Yeah, extension of the time for the assignments. I mean, I will not be discussing the assignments today, so feel free to so feel free to take your time. By the way, I should just say that there are some people who have not submitted. There are actually 6 of you have not yet submitted, right? So let me call your name. In case you guys have submitted, please, I mean, let me know. Maybe there's some technical issues. So Aradhya Agarwal, are you there?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, she is in Rajasthan.
Have an
Oh, she
internet.
is from Rajasthan. Okay, fine. Yeah, she called me up. Yeah. Then Nitin Prasad, I assume he is not there. Okay. Prabhuram Bidasa, I assume he is also not there. Okay. Sourjo Chakraborty, so you told that you will submit in 2 weeks, 2 days time, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Sauradeep Bhattacharjee,
Yes, sir. I will also submit by tonight. Like.
okay, fine. Shubhra Patro,
Sir, I will also submit by Thursday.
okay, so you submit before the next class on Thursday. If the rest of you also wants to take a look at your assignments and resubmit it, feel free to do that. Okay. But again, as I told you, don't try, I mean, try to time yourself. Okay. I mean, whatever has been given is not something hard. Okay. So if you are spending days trying to solve these assignments, then most likely you are struggling with some certain things.
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
For some algorithm, if there are 2 possible algorithms like as a solution, and one has a bigger time complexity than the other, like then if I submit the one with the bigger time complexity.
Yeah, so see again, if I say that if an assignment says that, oh, give me an efficient algorithm, technically you can give both of them. Of course, whenever I say efficient, it means that somebody who gives me a better or faster algorithm.
No, it was not mentioned like efficient or anything.
So this is your which one you're saying?
The Prim's.
Oh, so Prim's algorithm. I mean, you gave me a time complexity, right? Now, I mean, what time complexity did you give?
OV square.
Okay, good enough for me for now. I mean, again, I mean, here, I think OV square is basically the best that is there, right? And what is the best algorithm that is there? What is the
OV log E and O V log
Yeah.
E, something like they work better.
I think OE log E, I think, right? I think that is,
Yes, sir. But
yeah,
but,
that's fine. I mean, OV square is good enough. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah. See, again, as I told you, there are these algorithms, all of them possibly can be improved even further, particularly using data structures and all. So if you can improve it, fine. If you don't want to improve it, that's also fine. Because I did not insist on you guys to use the most complicated data structure. My goal here was so that you guys know Prim's and Kruskal's, the correctness of the algorithm, that was very essential in this particular situation. And of course, the kind of the time complexity. I mean, up to some, I mean, pretty good, reasonable number. Okay. And also you should know or remember that many of these algorithms with certain data structures can be improved. So in the last class, we did discuss on that a bit, right? So if you use certain data structures, you can do it. So how does a data structure help you in using reducing time? You should kind of know. Now, what data structure to use or how to design the data structure, we have not got into that at all. Okay, and so I mean, it's fine if you don't. So I don't expect you guys to know that. Okay, so in the last class we did Dijkstra's algorithm, right? So Dijkstra's algorithms, Prim's algorithms, and Kruskal's algorithm, all of them have some. They are all greedy algorithms, right? In the sense that they are doing something in a greedy fashion. So they're doing something to kind of produce something very. So let me share my screen. Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have seen some greedy algorithm, right? So we have seen some greedy algorithm. Actually, today whatever we are going to do is quite fun actually. So there's a greedy algorithms as we have seen. What all things have you seen? We have seen Dijkstra, right? For single source shortest path. We have seen Prim's or rather Kruskal's. This is MST. We have seen some other stuff like the bubble sort and all those things, which were, and all of them. The main issue is that to prove the correctness of the algorithm, okay, or the time complexity of the algorithm. Like for the case of bubble sort, the correctness of the algorithm is kind of obvious, but what is the time complexity? For Prim's and Kruskal's and Dijkstra's, the correctness of the algorithm is the hard part. The time complexity is not that hard a part. There's not much. So today I will look at one of my favorite algorithms actually, and that comes from machine learning. Now, how many of you have heard of machine learning? Okay, I should ask the opposite. How many of you have not heard of machine learning? Yeah. So you guys, of course, have heard of machine learning. I'm pretty sure about that. So what do you think does machine learning do? Anyone wants to volunteer and tell me what is machine learning?
Yeah, we basically design training sets for the machine so that after going through those, the machine is able to take a decision in an unknown situation, something like that.
Very good. Okay. But what kind of training? What kind of things that is supposed to be done? Okay, by the machine. Now, there are a lot of things that are done in the machine learning, but one of the simplest thing is what we can call is a classifier. So what is a classifier? So I say, I will be writing a number of things like, okay, I will write number 1 and number 2. This is handwritten, right? This was handwritten. I want a machine to recognize this. So I want to recognize my handwriting. So handwriting recognition. So how does this handwriting recognition work? So just let's say, forget 1 and 2, let's say 0 and 1, okay? So that means I want a machine, an algorithm that I will put in a writing, right? It will be either a 0 or a 1, and it will be handwritten, and it can be written. It's a handwritten, right? So there is no particular structure, and it should output what was written basically. Meaning it should see the picture of 0 and try to output 0, or you should see the picture of 1 and output the picture of 1. Okay. Or sometimes in the phone banking and phone this phone service kind of stuff like that, where you kind of call them up for some problems and all, you are asked to say say you have to kind of sum, there is some person, and that person will say yes or they will say no. Okay, it's a voice, it's a recording, right? Not a recording, it's a people's voice that you see, and the algorithm is supposed to hear that. When the algorithm or when the machine hears it, it records it as a sound bit, right? And that sound bit, my saying yes and your saying yes, are of course different. And even my saying yes 5 times, they will produce 5 different sound bits. But the idea is that whenever I say yes or anybody says yes, the algorithm should recognize and say, oh, you have told yes. And if somebody says no, you should say no. Right? Or I have even more stuff like, say, I have none of these things, right? So I have a huge set of data set. Okay, and this is a data set containing, say, all people's profile, financial profile, and all those things. Okay, and the bank wants to look at the financial profile and kind of distinguish. So if I give a person's financial profile, the algorithm wants to say that, oh, is it a good person to give a credit card or not a good person to give a credit card? Or in other words, is this person a potential client or no, right? So you want to distinguish between things. This is one of the basic things that machine learning does. Machine learning, of course, does a lot of other things. So how is this one done? Right? So the way in which it is done is that, then let's start with this kind of, any of them actually. So if you think of this picture, right? So you can think of that one is written in a picture, so it has some n number of, or say d number of pixels. 0 also, when it looked at as a picture, it has d number of pixels, right? And so basically, and these pixels have kind of course, intensity, light, and so on and so forth and so on, right? Which means that every data, okay, so this data, what we can say, this data, meaning which is the input, is a element in real to the power d, some parameter d. So the way in which it is done is that you have a lot of, so you have this huge collection of, so basically what you want is this following. I give you in the algorithm, I will give you a data which is in a d-dimensional space, and the output is the label associated with the data. Now, what is the label? Label is basically, if I give you the 1, you should output 1. If I give you 0, you should output 0. Or if I say yes, you should output yes. If I say no, you should output no. So the label of this sound bit is no. A label of a sound bit yes is yes. Okay. Or here in this case, the label of a person with a very good financial history and all those kind of stuff is a potential good candidate. So the label I can always think of as so I'm just talking about, in this particular lecture, I'm just talking about something called a binary classifier. Meaning this LX is just is either +1 or -1. That's it. Okay, it's a negative or positive. Any questions so far? So I want to design an algorithm. So this is what the machine learning wants to do. Hello? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you lost my connection, I suppose. Yeah, now it has come, right?
Yes. No, sir, again, go.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm this weird that I have connecting my iPad to the computer is a bit flaky. Okay, so this is working, right? Good. So this is what I want. Okay. So the way in which it is done is that to learn this, I want to produce such an algorithm. So for that, we want to give something called a test data. See, the algorithm is just a stupid algorithm, right? It doesn't have any brain as such. So it has to be trained to do something. Okay. And you cannot write a program individually for everything. So instead of that, you make it learn. So what does it mean? I start with a set of x1, y1 pair. Okay. Where xi gives the n different pairs, but these xi's are all in the d-dimensional space, and the yi's are basically the label of xi. Okay, so this is a plus minus 1. So you fit this, so you put this test data into the A, okay, into our algorithm. This algorithm, after retrieving this test data, kind of modifies itself and does some and produces into an A hat. And this is the classifier that we are talking about. So now, once it has kind of learned things, then the idea is that now if you can give it any x, it should output L of x. So that is the basic idea of machine learning or binary classifier, where you put in a set of labels. So this is called, I mean, to be more precise, this is what is called a supervised learning. Supervised learning. Yes, why supervised? Because initially you are giving it a set of, these are called labels, right? Labeled data. So they are all labeled. That, oh, this xi meaning this is, you have some, this is the yes. So in some sense you can say that to train the algorithm to recognize handwriting, you have fed that algorithm a lots of handwritten zeros and handwritten ones. And for each of them you have told them, see this is 0, see this is 1, see this is 0, and so on. Okay, and the algorithm, after seeing all of it, now will say that, oh, now I think I have got a classifier, or I can produce an algorithm that now you give me any other handwriting 0 or something, I will output I will tell you what is. Okay, this is exactly how human beings learn, babies learn, and so on. Right? Any questions so far? No. Okay. So okay, now I will try to kind of draw this thing. So what is happening here is that you have this huge space, right? In this huge space, you have this two kind of data. So some of them are, say, so think of this one to be the RD space, okay? So let's think of this to be the RD space. Of course, I cannot draw a d-dimensional space. So think of it as RD space. And you have some pluses, right? And you have some minuses. So if the problem is very complicated, then you don't expect to do anything. So we usually people assume that the problem has some nice structure. So a classifier, basically what it tries to do is that it says that, okay, see, you have given me the set of pluses and minuses. By looking at it, I think if I draw a line like this, this is my classifier. Meaning, so this is say a kind of a function that I have drawn. Okay, and if I draw this line, then anything on top or above it is called plus, and anything below it is minus. So now if I give you a new object here and say, oh, what is this? The idea is that you will say plus. Or I say something, what is this? You will say minus. Okay, so this is what is usually done. Now, this function, of course, can have a lot of structures, right? And they are not, now many of them are not very easy to kind of say. Like, for example, say if a function might be like this, right? And there's a plus everywhere else, in many other places, and you have minuses, all of them inside. You can clearly understand that, oh, so this is a basically what you are saying is that there is a circle. Anything that is within that circle is minuses, anything which is outside the circle is pluses. Right? So this is, so depending on the hypothesis of what this function or what this function has property, you can decide or design the so-called classifiers. So you can have quadratic classifier, meaning where this function is basically a polynomial of degree 2, or you can have something here, right? So you have various different types of classifiers are there. But one of the simplest classifier is what is called a linear classifier. And this is also one of the most used classifiers, I give. So the linear classifier is basically says a very simple thing, okay? So you have this set of points, and the assumption is actually that there is a line through the center that divides the space into positives and negatives. Okay, so everything here is positive, everything here is negative. Now don't think of it just a two-dimensional thing, right? It's a d-dimensional place, there is a separator. So to start with, an algorithm doesn't know this line. So algorithm is only fed with a set of pluses and minuses. And that algorithm is supposed to learn the separator. Or so I will give you a set of pluses and minuses, and your goal is to produce me a line like this. Note that there can be multiple lines, right? There can be a line that is possibly slightly off here. Yeah, I mean, our data has not helped me to kind of distinguish between which of these two are the things, but that's fine. It is currently a classifier that satisfies the current data sets. So the problem that we have is therefore is that I have been given a collection of test data. Okay, so I have been given test data, and the assumption is that there exists a linear classifier. And the question is, how to learn the linear classifier. Okay, so linear classifier is basically a hyperplane passing through the center that separates the whole space into two parts.
So why it passes through the center?
So technically you can do it for lots of other things. Okay, I mean, as and when machine learning becomes developed and as you learn more and more stuff, we will talk about what happens if it doesn't pass to center, if it is slightly off and all. But this is the kind of simplest one that is there. Okay, and we will be talking about this thing right today. Okay, so I mean, this is actually called the linear classifier. I mean, of course, you can have it shifted and all, but let's not worry about the shifted linear classifier. Okay. Any questions? So by the way, are you guys all familiar with, so you guys have done linear algebra, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes.
good. So I can, so let me now go to one of my notes that will help you in explaining this stuff. Okay. So see, let's see what all things are there. Okay, so you have been given the data set x1, x2, x3, sorry, x1, y1, x2, y2, still xn, yn. Okay, and you have the x size is in D. Actually, you don't need this statement, whatever I written here. Forget this. And you have the yi's are in +1 or -1. Okay, so yi's are basically the labels of the xi. So yi's are basically L of xi. And the goal is to design an algorithm that uses the test data to produce a classifier such that given an x will produce the L of x, the label of x. Note that this x might not be anywhere in this x1 to xn. They can be completely a different one, right? An x that is not necessarily in the test data. And the most crucial thing is that we are assuming is that this xi has a linear classifier, or in other words, there is a theta or a vector theta such that y or the label, so label is +-1, right, is basically the sign of theta dot x. So in other words, if I have this thing, right, and say this is the classifier that we are talking about, note that if I have something over here, what does it mean? It is, if I take the, if I have this one, you will have a dot product will be positive, right? It can have some, dot product can be a big stuff, but it will be positive. And if I have some point here, then the dot product with the classifier will be negative. Oh, by the way, what do I mean by this one? This is the classifier, right? So this is not my theta. Okay. In a higher dimensional space, how do you define a hyperplane? Through the origin?
We choose a vector and consider the perpendicular plane.
Exactly. So the theta that we are talking about is this one. Okay, the perpendicular to the hyperplane is the theta that we are talking about. Okay, so theta with anything on the 90 degree will be positive, and anything on the outside the 90 degree will be negative. Okay, any questions so far? Yeah. Okay. So if not, so let's, okay. So this is the assumption, and this is what we have to do. So this has been used for lots of this kind of stuff. So we just talked about it's a handwritten recognition, so recognition of animals. So I have pictures of cats and dogs, and so on and so forth. Right? And pictorially, it looks something like this. You have this set of points, and you hope that there is a hyperplane that separates the pluses from the minuses, or the blues from the reds, or something like that. So can you guys think of some algorithm? How to do it?
Yeah, I was thinking of a very trivial way. Like I can take a +1 label and a -1 label, and then I'll just take a midpoint of that and draw a line perpendicular to it.
Okay.
And then I will, for the time being, I'll have a positive space and a negative space.
Right.
So now next time, if I choose a positive label,
Right. What do you
and
do?
if it is in the positive, I have nothing to do.
Yes. If it is wrongly classified, then
so if it is wrongly classified, then I have to take some distance into account, like maybe see, let's say So I was thinking to shift that midpoint. So I would like to, to evaluate this midpoint
Shift
line
the
again.
midpoint somewhere. Right.
Yeah, midpoint line again. Yeah,
Towards the left or right, depending on where.
yeah, yeah. But then but it will be computationally, I don't know, take a lot of computations.
I mean, computationally will take something, but also, I mean, by shifting towards how much will you shift towards? And it might,
it just came into my head, like just drawing, like I would draw it, and like if I on a paper, I would do that.
So actually, the algorithm that is there is this very simple algorithm. It came from a couple of biologists. Biologists use this a lot, this algorithm, and by two persons called Minsky and Pfeffer. Sometimes it is called the start of machine learning in some sense. So machine learning didn't start from computer scientists, it came from the biologists. And this is what is kind of similar to what we are saying. You start with an initial theta, which is a 0. I mean, that's like just a start. Now, if there exists some t such that it is wrongly classified, okay, that means yt is not equal to sine of theta dot, oh sorry, this should be t. Yeah. If yt is not equal to sine of theta of t, choose such a xtyt. So that means this is wrongly classified, all right? So this one is wrongly classified. If it is wrongly classified, what you do is that you kind of choose any one of them. And then you shift it by something. So note that this is kind of not that hard to imagine. So like if this is my theta, okay, so this is the hyperplane, and say I have a point here which is plus. So what does it mean? It means that, oh, that means this one has been wrongly classified. So instead of that, what you do is that it says that, okay, see, it is wrongly classified, right? It is positive. So I should shift this one towards here, right? That's the main idea. Right? So this is basically, I add x plus times yt. So in that case, if x plus yt, note that this will shift towards this direction. On the other hand, if it was the opposite, if say x was over here, I would have gone what? Again, same thing. It will be x plus it will have come this direction, right? And on the other hand, if this one was wrongly classified and it was a minus over here, then what would have happened? Then this is a x. I am supposed to now shift it here, right? I have to turn it here so that this hypercube turns towards the left or turns in the anti-clockwise direction. And that will happen because this is a minus, so yt is minus. So if I add it, this arrow will go this way.
So shouldn't it be xt dot theta, like xt dot yt? I don't understand. Theta is equal to theta plus xt dot.
What is theta?
Theta is something like it's the normal direction, right? So
theta
do theta
is the element in r to the power d.
Yeah, so it should be theta dot xt, right?
No, this is
Not
just I mean, this is a scalar thing. I mean, theta plus xt makes sense, right? Both of them are in r to the power d.
Oh yes, okay, sorry. Yeah.
Both of them are r to the power d. Okay, so this is like the amount of which I should shift is basically being told here. Okay, so think about it. Okay, so this is exactly what I just now told here. That this kind of makes sense because this one, if the x is here and is positive, then I would like to shift it here, and xt dot yt does do that. Okay, shift it in the clockwise direction. Okay, if x was here and positive, then I want it to also then I wanted to move it in the anti-clockwise direction. And again, xt.yt helps me to do that. Okay. On the other hand, if the misclassified thing is a minus, then I want it to go in this way. And then because of the minus, the yt is minus, so xt.yt, if I add it up, it will shift in this direction, in the anti-clockwise direction, which is exactly where I want it to shift. So in some sense, I am doing a very greedy thing. Okay, it's something like what your friend just told. Okay, that every step I am just tweaking the theta in a particular direction. The direction is correct. There is no doubt about that. The direction in which I am supposed to go, I am going. But how much amount am I going by? I am going by yt, I mean going by xt, right? And that can be a lot. If you realize that it can really go off. So it's very much possible that after shifting, I will end up in producing something here, which means my new hyperplane will be here, but which also might mean that something that was correctly classified, say over here till now, could have become wrongly classified, because I might have shifted by more than what I am supposed to shift. So,
Sir, in the
yeah.
so in the first page, where you cut the condition mod x equal to 1, I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that
Even
is
then,
good.
that doesn't help. Even then, that doesn't help, because see, I mean, say for example, theta initially has norm 0, then it goes up by some norm yt. Okay, so it becomes norm 1. Then it goes up by another yt1, or to say yt1, then we go to yt2. Now this one has norm more than 1 or less than 1, I don't know. Even if these two things have norm 1, even if both of them have norm 1, the theta you cannot guarantee has norm 1. Right? So theta is kind of growing up or down or something. It's we are unable to maintain it. So in short, this is a simple algorithm, no doubt about that. An algorithm where you are doing a very greedy thing, but actually the correctness of the algorithm is not at all clear. And this is quite fun, actually, this history of this particular problem. That this one was solved in 1968 by two biologists. They ran their algorithm. So for them, they didn't care about correctness of algorithms or running time or something. They ran their algorithm on certain things of those days. And it amazingly worked outstandingly well. They called this one as perceptron, because perceptron is the kind of the nerve endings and all that human beings have. So now you see why the name perceptron came, because of Minsky and Pepper, who are biologists. Okay, so their algorithm was working amazingly. They were working fast as well as they were outputting the correct thing. But theoretically, it is not even clear whether the algorithm even stops, because every time I do a local change, that local change might add new issues, new things which are properly classified now might become wrongly classified.
Sir, maybe in their case, there actually did exist a linear classifier.
Yeah. I assume that there
if-
exists a linear classifier.
So a linear classifier would come with some properties, right? Okay, but if there is a linear classifier, the data has to be in a particular way. I mean, the kind of things that we are doing, just intuitively, like when we are changing it
Yeah,
3D.
I mean, you assume it is a linear classifier, okay? Assume that there exists a good, assume that there exists a theta. Assume that there exists a theta. Okay, assume that's the case. But even after assuming there is an ideal theta, right? Even then, we don't know that theta, right? To start with. And we're trying to find that. How many steps is required to find that? Why will this algorithm even come close to finding that? So even if so of course their algorithm, you assume that there is a linear classifier, but theoretically we cannot prove that this algorithm will stop if there is a linear classifier or not.
Sir, if the plus sign exists in more than two quadrants, then only I think the algorithm will not stop, because every time there will be at least one plus out of the.
Yeah, maybe. Okay, so the story goes that this algorithm does stop. And this algorithm, we now have a very good understanding of the runtime. But finally, this correct algorithm came in the 1980s. It's quite an impressive result. Okay, that here is an algorithm that was greedy. See, if the algorithm stops, you understand that this algorithm has classified correctly. Why? Because if the algorithm stops, that means there doesn't exist a t such that yt is not equal to sine of theta dot xt, which is exactly what we want, right? You want a theta to classify the set of test data, right? And so if the algorithm stops, it stops perfectly, no problem, great. But if the algorithm, but main thing is that what is the probability that the algorithm stops, or why does the algorithm even stop? And after how many steps does the algorithm stop? Okay, so this is the question that we have to kind of solve. Okay. So now here I have two questions now. Are you guys liking this problem? If you guys want to think about this, I will let you guys think about it. Okay, I can do that. Or I can go ahead and give you the solution. The solution is actually a 5-line solution, in fact. Okay, but it took 15 years or so for people to come up with this algorithm. Now with the correctness of the algorithm. So so let me see. How many of you are interested in trying it out, trying to prove that this algorithm is correct, or I will stop and come up with an upper bound on runtime? Can you guys unmute yourself and say something?
We would like to think. I think.
Okay. Any other opinion?
Yes, sir. We would like to think about it.
Okay. Anybody wants to know the algorithm right away? The solution right away? Okay. So what I will do is following them. So I will stop now. I will let you think. I will upload this video. Okay. Think. Okay. This is a very simple algorithm, and your goal is to, you understand the problem, right? Why does this algorithm even stop? Right? You can assuming that there is a linear classifier. See, if there is no linear classifier, of course the algorithm will not stop. No question about that. But if there is a linear classifier, then why does the algorithm stop, and what is the upper bound on the runtime of the algorithm?
Assuming like there exists a linear classifier which perfectly distinguishes between two sides. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, it perfectly distinguishes between the two sides of the test data. Yeah, everything is on the test data, right? I mean, we don't know what happens other than the test data. So on the test data, there is a, so let's say that, so the assumption is, yeah, so the assumption is, assumption, there exists a theta star such that for all I, which is between 1 or 1 to n, okay, yt equals to sine of theta star dot xt. So assume that there is a linear classifier that perfectly classifies the test data. Okay. Then even, I mean, then why does this algorithm stop?
Sir, if we have only one point, say it is plus.
Then there's nothing, right? If there's only 1 point, there's no problem. If there's 2 points also, there's no problem.
No, sir, I am saying that if we have only one point, say plus, and then we have a classifier,
Yeah.
but we are starting with theta equal to 0,
Right.
and then theta will be updated to say that point is xt and yt is plus, so theta will be just xt.
Right. And that will be a
Uh,
classifier.
no, sir, that line passes through that particular point.
What is theta? Is theta the classifier?
Oh, no, sorry. Oh, sir. Okay.
Theta is the perpendicular to the classifier.
Yes, sir. My bad. Sorry.
sir, what is the interpretation of any point lying on the line of classification? Like, if
Imagine
it,
that there is no point lying in the line of classification.
okay,
Okay, so say that there is not only that there is something, there is a gap between that. Okay, in fact, you can assume this following thing. You can assume that there is a best classifier such that, okay, there is a best classifier such that for all of these I elements, it is bigger than a gamma. Gamma is some parameter. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I made a mistake here. Sorry. This is wrong. So it is theta dot xi times yi is bigger than gamma. Note that I just wrote here, right? Yt is equals to sine of theta prime of theta star of xt. The another way of writing is that, what is the another way of writing it? Another way of writing it is that yt times theta star dot xt is bigger than 0. Right? Any question about here? There are same ways of writing it. So I am saying that you can assume that they are not only bigger than 0, but they are a little bit more than gamma. Or in other words, this is basically that not only there is a classifier, there is a small band here which basically has a tolerance. So it is basically the amount of, I mean, there is a small tolerance that is allowed here. Okay, so this is, you can say, gamma kind of stuff.
Sir,
Yeah.
isn't theta star dot xt into yt is greater than 0 enough for saying that? Do we need gamma? because if it is equal, if there is
I
some
mean,
point on the line, then it should be equal to 0.
enough for saying what?
That there is no point on the classifier line.
Right, it is greater than 0 is good enough, right? So this is what is the meaning of classification, okay? But I'm saying that you can assume, because anyways, so this is what is called, I mean, you don't have, I mean, it is always assumed that, see, if there is a line that is very tight, it is always hard to classify, okay? But if this set of pluses and minuses are far apart from each other, then there's a big gap in between, it is easier to classify, right? So you can start with saying that, or not start with, you can assume that they are not only greater than 0, they are, this is bigger than some gamma more than 0. The gamma is a parameter. Okay, so in some sense that the data sets are, I mean, it is not like very close to each other kind of stuff like that. They are slightly separated. So there is a separation between the positives and negatives. Okay, so it's called the band of separation.
Sir, are you also assuming that the line of classification passes through the origin?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm completely assuming that line of position is continuous origin, and that is exactly what this statement means. This statement means exactly that. So here I'm just doing classification things for when the hyperplane goes to the origin. Okay, so this is, you can say that this is the simplest form of classification algorithm. Okay, it's a linear classification first of all, and it goes through the origin.
Sir,
Yeah.
we have this algorithm. Now, let's say we get hold of some other data, in which some other label data.
Yeah.
How then this algorithm will not stop if we if the assumption does not hold? How would we check whether the
No, let's assume that the assumption holds. The assumption doesn't hold, then the algorithm. See, in machine learning, always, if the assumption doesn't hold, then nothing can be told. Okay, it is, everything is done under the setting that there is an assumption, there is a gap or something like that. Okay, if you give me some other data or some data which is not satisfying the linear classification, then that means there is no linear classification of the whole thing to start with. Okay, machine learning starts on the assumption that there is some classification. It can be a linear classification. It can be something like what you do in the statistics, like you assume that the data, this distribution is Poisson. Okay, then do something, right? So here also, you assume that the data has some particular form of classification. They can be, the linear classification is the simplest of them. If you say that no, see, this data is not a linear classification, it is actually a quadratic classification. Or it is, there can be lots and lots of various topological classifications that are there. Or it can be classification based on something else, or linear with not passing through the origin. Right?
But sir, how would we check whether the assumption holds? In
No,
statistics,
that
we
is a
can do
completely
hypothesis
different thing.
testing.
That is not the hypothesis. That is the kind of, that comes from some kind of a knowledge that happens, right? So one thing is that if you cannot find a classification like this, then you know that this linear classification doesn't hold. Okay, so this is like you try to fit something. You have a data, you're trying to fit that data in the best way as you can. Now, if you cannot fit it, that means there is no fit of it. Okay, so that is not the. I mean, I don't want to go into too much details of the machine learning. Let's live with, I mean, just this problem for now. Okay, we can have a separate thing. So if you have things hard or things of SVMs or something, so all of them are on this direction. You assume that there is a linear classification. You assume that there is a quadratic classification, and accordingly you make changes or try to find the. So there is an assumption that the data, somebody has kind of told you that, see, I think there is a there's a quadratic separator. Okay, fine. Now let's go and try to find the quadratic. Okay, so here don't think too much about it. Think of the fact that assume there is a linear separator, okay, linear classifier, and you have been given this data, and you can also assume that these data have some special things, that they have a certain band of separation in the data. Now here is an algorithm. Does this algorithm manage to find a classifier, the linear classifier?
Sir,
Yeah.
Sir, I was thinking of a very simple scenario. Let us say ki the ideal, okay, the actual separator theta star
Yeah.
is, let's say I'm like looking at a 2D picture, so perpendicular, like y-axis.
Yeah.
Okay, and so the data is like in the first and fourth quadrant
Yes.
is, let's say, positive, like,
Yeah.
and in the second and third quadrant, let's say, negative.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
So let us say we are now starting with our algorithm, and we are saying theta is equal to 0 degree.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we are starting with our algorithm, and let's say theta is equal to 0 degree.
Yes.
So in the original data set, so I'm looking at from like, so I will go into the algorithm also, and then I'm also looking at from above with all this information, that the points in the first and fourth quadrant, they will not cause any problem because they are already in accordance with the ideal, the correct theta star and the theta that we have assumed, right? So the problem will be, let's say, with a point, let's say in the third quadrant. Let's say I choose a point in the third quadrant. According to theta is equal to 0, it will be a problem.
Yeah.
So what will happen is, accordingly, my pointer would turn.
Yeah.
Okay. So when it would turn,
initially it gives this one. Right after the first thing, it will give point to the first one.
Yeah. So in the, let's say I take, okay, so for some point in the third quadrant, it starts turning. So it will.
Yeah. Fine.
Yes. So when it turns, it adds, let's say that it takes in a sector of points. It takes in a sector. So what it does is it loses some sector in the fourth quadrant, and it takes in some sector in the the second quadrant, right?
Right.
This is still correct, right? Okay. Well, according.
No, this might not be correct. I mean, it depends upon whether there is a plus. There might be pluses over here.
Okay.
There might be pluses over here, and there may be minuses over here.
Oh, okay.
Right. So
no, I was thinking in terms of the points that I'll, the new set. If I can just prove ki.
Okay. So if you're trying to prove that if something is classified properly, it will remain classified, then that is not true. Then it would tell you that.
Yeah, that clearly not going to happen. So there has, but I was trying to find some
This is not a
so I was trying
monotonically improving function.
But there has to be some invariant, right? Like there has to be some invariant.
There is some potential that increases.
It's not okay.
Yeah, think about it. Okay, so what I will do is that I let you guys think about it. Okay, and I don't want to give you too much time. So tomorrow night, I will upload, or tomorrow evening, I will upload a PDF where this solution is explained. Okay, it's a very simple solution. I will not do it in class because it is, I don't want to spend too much time in that. You guys can go over it and understand that stuff. It is just a 5-line stuff, but it is beautiful.
You may as well upload it today. Like those who want to try will just once.
Okay, I will upload it today also. I can upload it right away. After this thing, I will upload it. Whoever wants can go and look at it. Whoever don't want, try it out and then read it. Okay. And I can say that if you are interested in machine learning problems, this is the start. It is the simplest binary linear classifier. Then if you have heard things like support vector machines and all those things, they will come up later. Everything starts from here, from the work of Minsky and Papert, and they are beautiful algorithms that theoretical computer scientists took 15 years to prove the correctness. And it's just a 5-line. I don't know whether the algorithm in the starting was actually written in this beautiful form or not. Maybe this is something that was not there. Maybe the biologists were not that expert in linear algebra to explain it in this beautiful way. But they basically did this algorithm. Okay, so this is a typical example of a greedy algorithm where the correctness is not hard to prove. If the algorithm stops, what is hard to prove is why does the algorithm stop? Or what is the runtime of the algorithm? There's somebody point out here, it is not even clear that it will ever stop. It might just keep on going round and round and round. Okay, so any more questions?
So can we compare, like, which of the complexity is better, mod square or E log V?
Mod square or?
Mod V square, as in the number of vertices.
Oh, mod V square or E log E?
E log, which is the same as E log V.
Yeah. So technically, if you look at the dense graph or graphs where E is on the order of V square, then of course V square is better, or okay, versus E log E. But if E is much lower than, so it's not a dense graph, meaning the size of E is significantly lower than V square, or small O of V square kind of stuff, or V square by log V or something, then E log E improves. So people use both these kind of algorithms, or both this kind of time complexity.
Okay.
Okay. If there is no more questions, so let me stop here. Okay. So yeah, so I would like you guys to go over this algorithm and work on it. In the next class, we will go back to the normal algorithms kind of stuff, and we will be talking about a bit of a divide and conquer algorithms, where we will show you how to do matrix multiplication, how to do a multiplication of big numbers, and so on and so forth in a very beautiful and clever way. And this will be a completely new. So till now we are dealing with greedy algorithms. From the next class we will go into what is called divide and conquer algorithm. Something that we have seen it already in something like March sort or quick sort, but we will go further into it. Okay.
Sir.
Yeah.
Have you uploaded the slides of Dijkstra's algorithm?
I have not uploaded the slides of Dijkstra's algorithm. I think I have uploaded the video. Okay, I will upload the slides. Okay. I'll upload these slides as well as the Dijkstra's.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.